In this video, I'm going to show you how to build the ultimate workbench. Well, half of the ultimate workbench. But don't worry, the second half comes in the next video, so make sure you check that one out as well. But let's get to this one, so let's go. So I've had this pile of wood that I call a workbench for over a year now, and I think it's actually time I make me a solid workbench. As you can see, this thing was not stable at all, a lot of wasted space for storage, and the top wasn't even flat. I also never secured the top to the legs so I could just pick it up. To make this new workbench, I'm going to be using 2x4s and plywood. I will also reuse the MDF top, but I'll just flip it over to get a cleaner show face. I didn't want to keep the rounded edges that 2x4s come with, so I just ran them through the table saw to knock off the rounded edges. I'm going to be using half-lap joinery to connect the 2x4 frames together. I set my 2x4s where they need to go and mark where I need to cut my half-laps. I then use the mark to transfer the measurements over to the rest of the 2x4s that will be getting the same cut. I found the middle of the 2x4s and marked them as well to know how deep to make the cut. I use my crosscut slide with a stop block to remove most of the material from my half laps. I realized I didn't need to remove everything at the table saw, that I could simply just break away the rest of the material with the hammer and clean it up with the chisel. It doesn't need to be perfect, just slightly above average. The stretchers that connect the two sides are designed to cut half laps using the table saw. They wanted to tip over, so I just used a miter saw with a trenching feature to get the same result. You honestly could just use a miter saw to get them all done like this and don't have to worry about the table saw or crosscut sled. After running my first piece, I realized that the blade was not cutting all the way to the back of the 2x4. To fix this, I just added a scrap 2x4 spacer in between my miter fence and my workpiece. It should look something like this. I then had to mark out and cut the sides to accept the stretcher. I used the table saw again to get these done. I know I have big gaps here, but it's just to show you how it all comes together. I cleaned it up off camera. A little bit of wood glue and screw to hold it down together while the glue dries. Also check for square as much as possible. Once the sides had time to dry a bit, I then connected the stretchers with glue and 2 more screws. Alright, so the frame is done here. As you can see, I added some wheels with brakes off camera because there's no need to explain that. You basically just screw it in from the bottom. I guess I just explained it for you. Next step is to add the plywood at the bottom here on both sides, and then the dividers, and then adding the top. I don't think I'm going to paint this. I'm probably just going to leave it raw, but we'll see. I clamped a scrap 2x4 in the middle to help me set my plywood flush with the bottom of my workbench. The left and right side had wheel casters, so that helped me set it flush with the bottom of my workbench. I used pocket holes to secure the plywood to the workbench. Same thing goes for the sides. I used pocket holes to secure them to the 2x4s, clamping scrap wood to flush the plywood to the back of the 2x4s. I cut some wood spacers that were 21 3/4 inches long to set my middle dividers. I cut my MDF top to size off camera, and I was finally able to lay it on top of the workbench. After admiring my work, I gave it the ultimate test. Yep, this will do just fine. I cut and made 6 drawer boxes to fit one side of the workbench. 4 of them are going to be 6 inches tall, and 2 will be 5 inches tall. I used a lot of scrap wood to make these, so I had a few that had 1/2 inch bottoms and some had 1/4 inch bottoms. Alright guys, that's going to be it for this video. If you like what you saw, make sure you hit the like button. If you didn't like what you saw, also hit that like button. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss part 2 of this build series. We're going to be adding the drawer fronts, cabinet doors. We're also going to be finishing the top. And I want to include some of this collection as well on this workbench. So I'll catch you guys on the next video.